Hey there, church family. It's good to be with you. This is Monday morning, and we're continuing to walk through the book of Acts together as a staff. And so today, the portion I'm going to walk you through is chapter 8, verses 1 through 8. And it's a very short passage today that we're going to talk about, but a couple key things that happen here. And so let's get right into this first section. The first couple verses, we see the fulfillment of what Jesus commanded when he ascended into heaven. So let's get right into it here. Chapter 8, verse 1. It says, "The persecution scatters the believers. A great wave of persecution began that day, sweeping over the church in Jerusalem, and all the believers except the apostles were scattered through the regions of Judea and Samaria. Some devout men came and buried Stephen with great mourning, but Saul was going everywhere to destroy the church. He went from house to house, dragging out both men and women to throw them into prison." So I want to jump back, if you have your word, if you would go with me, jump back to Acts chapter 1. And you'll notice here, as Jesus ascends into heaven, he replied, this was after the apostles said, "Lord, has the time come for you to free Israel and restore our kingdom?" And this was Jesus' response. He says, "The Father alone has the authority to set those dates and times, and they are not for you to know. But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you." Okay, so he's warning them of the day of Pentecost, as we've read about, as we've studied about. And then he says, "But you will receive power of the Holy Spirit when it comes upon you, and you will be my witnesses, telling people about me everywhere." And here's the part I want you to hear: "In Jerusalem, throughout Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth." Up to that point, they were just surrounding Jerusalem. Because of the persecution that happened, right? Jesus saw the big picture, and that's what I love. Jesus saw the big picture that after the Holy Spirit came, there was things that were going to happen, and it wasn't going to be always received well. And so as those things happened and unfolded, which those things being the apostles and the early churches starting to form, and the apostles preaching, being filled with the Spirit, performing miracles, doing all of these great works for the church through the power of the Holy Spirit. Now it wasn't received well. The religious leaders were getting angry. People were getting put in prison. Some were getting put to death. Now they are pushing them out to and scattering to the, quote, ends of the earth. And that starts in Judea and Samaria. And so it's really interesting here that we see in this chapter what God promised through Jesus's words as he ascended into heaven. Moving on, verse 4. Philip preaches in Samaria, but the believers who were scattered preached the good news about Jesus wherever they went. Philip, for example, went to the city of Samaria and told the people there about the Messiah. Crowds listened intently to Philip because they were eager to hear his message and see the miraculous signs he did. Many evil spirits were cast out, screaming as they left their victims, and many who had been paralyzed or lame were healed. So there was great joy in that city. Like I said, a very short passage today. There's a lot of study, and tomorrow's video will have even the continuation of this chapter in more depth. But what I want you to catch here is that even though persecution was happening, even though the church was being scattered and these different church leaders and Jewish leaders were being kind of pushed from their comfort zone, which we've heard our pastor talk about many times, their ministry never stopped. And that's what's so beautiful about this is, again, I remind my students all the time that the reason you and I are even sitting having this conversation today, opening the word, is because of these people. Because these people, as they were persecuted, they didn't give up. They didn't just throw in the towel because it got difficult. They continued and they persevered and they pressed on. And that's what we're seeing here at the start of chapter 8, is this perseverance of the church and these early Christians that said, listen, you can push us out of this town, we'll just preach to the next. And I love that we hear about the evil spirits cast out of people, and it gets so in depth and so specific that they were screaming as they left their victims. Many who had been paralyzed or lame were healed, just as we read about a few chapters ago. Last week in my video, we talked about the man at the gate called Beautiful, right? That was lame his whole life, and through the power of the Holy Spirit, Peter says, get up and walk. Stuff like that happened, and it happened on a daily basis. And that's because they believed in the power of the Holy Spirit that God entrusted them with as the church. And that is the church that we are still called to be today, is trusting in the power of the Holy Spirit that God has entrusted into us. I hope you guys are blessed by that. Check out chapter 8, read through it on your own, see if there's stuff that stands out to you that maybe we didn't get to talk about today. But love you guys. I will talk to you soon. Have a great day.